So There Will Be Blood is not my favourite film, really. Well, it's up there with my favourite films, but it's not my favourite film at all. It's a film that I think contains within it, however, an incredibly important life lesson. And a few months ago, I did this video all about the final scene of There Will Be Blood, like an analysis of it and breaking it down. And I just recently got to thinking about this opening, sort of establishing shot that kicks off that scene. And this is the scene, of course, of Daniel Plainview. We open the camera, sees him sleeping on the floor of his bowling alley in his big mansion at the end of There Would Be Blood. And so clearly, I think what Paul Thomas Anderson is trying to get across there is that Daniel Plainview has obviously sort of come to resent his rather opulent trappings now. And he's kind of like resenting the fact that he's being rich. And he alludes to this in another scene with J.M. Tilford, is it? The oil barons, who he initially goes to meet and he says, I'll come find you wherever you are and cut your throat. And he brings up his son in the conversation. And he gets offered $1 million, which, just for clarity's sake, in sort of 1910s money, that translates to about $27 million adjusted for inflation in today's money, just to sort of show you how much money he would have been getting. And those oil baron types, they probably aren't the sort to mince words, and they do mean, we'll make you a millionaire while you're sitting in, not a multi-millionaire though, right? So, and by the way, that oil is worth vastly in excess of that amount of money. He's probably getting like 1% of what the oil's worth, I'd have said, and it's probably worth, adjusted for inflation, more like $2.7 billion. So, and he's come to resent his now rather opulent trappings, and he's sort of sleeping on the floor of the bowling alley since I imagine. This sort of reminds him of sleeping on the hard floor of the desert and something like that. And the life lesson to be drawn from this is like he's initially, I think, probably graduated college in, I imagine, geology, and he's gone initially to work for the US Geological Survey, Daniel Plainview, that is, and he's left Geological Survey at some point. He's gone out prospecting for silver out in the deserts of New Mexico or Arizona or California, these sorts of places. So he strikes. He gets success mining silver, which we see in the opening shots of There Will Be Blood. He has an accident in his mine shaft that almost kills him, leaves him with a permanently damaged leg. He's always limping around throughout There Will Be Blood. But so many years pass between this initial silver prospecting escapade in which he was successful, and he crawls, doesn't he, in the silver mining thing from the ruined mine shaft all the way back to town to get the seal of approval put on this silver, this certificate of authenticity that he's found the silver, right? So he's this man that clearly capable of putting in Herculean efforts and seemingly will stop at nothing for profit and success and money and prestige and everything that goes along with it. And he adopts HW at one point after a colleague of his or a business partner of his meets their end after a bit of drilling equipment kills them, like falling on the head in the mine shaft, and deaths occur. His life is put in danger to some extent, even though Daniel's probably among the more competent people there and has a better idea of what he's doing, and seems very hardened to these sorts of realities of drilling for oil in America, and so that's like to flesh out like more of what's been going on. And then of course there's this whole conflict with Eli Sunday later on in the movie, and he's depicted in this relentless and exploitative campaign for profit and the furthering of his own position and self-aggrandizement. So and he ends up getting everything he wants, really. I mean, more or less. He doesn't end up with family. He loses that. He loses HW. He doesn't... But then again, did he really want family to begin with, or was he using HW more as like a pawn? And he's sort of presenting himself as a family business to get contracts to get leases on people's land to drill for oil as kind of a facade. That's very possible as well. But I think he actually kind of buys into that whole, wholesome family business image type stuff, and sort of ends up believing his own bullshit to some extent. Though probably to quite a great extent, I'd have said. And so in terms of life lessons to be learned from this, like, this is unfortunately a life lesson that is played out again and again and again and again in the world. And I'm guilty of it. I think loads of people are guilty of it. And it amounts to sort of when you lose sight of why you're doing something at all, and it becomes just about an end goal and an end objective, if you see what I mean. And in the case of Daniel, it is clearly for money and wealth. I mean, I did this once. I had this this noble ambition of starting this political social networking service. It was like a social media platform, and unfortunately, greed got to me, and I did sort of see dollar signs emerging in my eyes that, oh, this will make me a lot of money, and who knows? It might well not have done. I might have wasted a lot of time on it had I gained a bit more perspective on it, and it does happen to people, and like certain things do become very enticing because of the prospect of financial reward and the possibilities of what you could do with all that money. If, however, the money itself entails a stress-free life free of work, and does it, you know what I mean? So is that what he's really pursuing? I think Daniel Plainview is what loads and loads and loads of people pursue in life. The big house. Yeah, like the big pile, the cars. He doesn't get the trophy wife, but I mean, a lot of people want that as well, and if they've got money, they will get that. As it's usually like any kind of these three central components of the greed mentality: big house, fast car, hot wife. Seems like a recipe, the recipe of success. Like those three basic things mean success. And trophy wife entails children that can be sort of taken care of by a nanny or something, just sort of kept in the background. You don't have to have like too much involvement with them. And then you go like holidays wherever you want, and not just one fast car, but several. Collection of beautiful machines that you can drive around very fast in. And I've been reflecting more on my own life, and like the tragedy, I think, of There Will Be Blood, partly is the fact that Daniel must have come to some realization, I think, to end up sleeping on the floor of his bowling alley, of he misses the desert. He misses being out there prospecting for oil, and like that's echoed in his bit of dialogue to J.M. Tilford. Is like, what would I do with myself? What you'd have made me. You'd have. I've no real justification for working at all after that sort of money. And I think this does sort of like tally with his mind, and maybe he's not all that self-absorbed, Daniel, but he sort of realizes this along the way a bit more. He's like, oh shit, I am gonna get loads of money out of this, I was like, and like he's like in love with prospecting, and sort of in love with, I don't know, the harsh and beautiful scenery out in the desert, and the natural world, and this creates like the contrast between his character, the science character, sort of the science, technology, engineering, mathematics character Pol of Daniel Plainview, and the arts, the religion pole of Eli Sunday, and it's like the conflict between these two opposing charges, if you like, or forces that creates the central opposition, if you like, or the central dramatic conflict within There Will Be Blood. And I think, and this is something Alan Watts has talked about. Also, I'm a big fan of Alan Watts, and always have been. You know, he's talking like, firstly you go to university, you get a degree, you know, you do undergrad, and then you go to graduate school, then you're off into the corporate world, and then then the big thing is to get the promotion, and then the thing is to get the next promotion, and then the next thing is to become head of department, and suddenly you're vice president of the company, and you wake up at 50 years old and you think, I have arrived. And I think to a lot of people, particularly in like corporate jobs, it can strike one as being, after like many decades of pursuit of something, strikes one as being somewhat hollow and somewhat meaningless. So I mean, what I try to do in my life, like, so you can sort of tell by my clothes, I think, a little bit. I've got a checked farmer shirt thing on, and like this gilet, which is like very typical of like UK countryside youth, really. It's a shuffle thing. It's called a shuffle. But yeah, like I'm thinking, like in my life, I don't want to be dissatisfied with anything that I do at all. And I want to be really, really certain I'm pursuing something meaningful, something that's going to contribute a positive influence to the world. And I do want to work hard, and I do want to do the things I enjoy. And my background is farming, so at some point, I mean, my father owns a farm, so at some point I'm learning about agriculture now, agricultural college, to take that on one day, and that will need to be sort of partly a responsibility of mine, along with my sister. So I thought it'd be very expedient to do that, and as it happens, I do really enjoy agriculture and working on farms and being outdoors in the countryside, and I sort of like appreciate the sentiment of Daniel Plainview that he enjoys being in the desert, even though I couldn't think of a worse place I'd like to work than in a fucking desert myself, because I'm very much used to sort of temperate climates and whatnot. But yeah, like working outdoors in sort of like the weather and like seeing like lovely nature, or in like the sunshine in summer is beautiful, wonderful. I love working with animals. I adore that, cattle especially. And yes, and I also like have big idealistic attachments to agriculture for all sorts of reasons. The use of a big thing that I'm trying to like talk about a lot on my social media at the moment is hemp farming for carbon sequestration and for the creation of bioplastics or composite thermoplastics made with hemp. And I find all that sort of stuff very, very fascinating. And the applications of it and the potential of those sorts of things could be huge, and it could literally save the world and save billions of people possibly from the fate of being displaced due to runaway climate change between now and 2050 or so. And yes, a very, very big challenge. But I mean, if you appreciate, hemp's, cannabis's potential to sequester carbon, it's a challenge that takes on already somewhat more manageable dimensions, just considering this fact, and through doing nothing else about it. So, a very, very positive thing. And I think I need to keep agriculture in my life, at least to some extent. I was initially sort of attracted into stand-up comedy and writing novels. I think probably when I was about 16 is when I sort of first really started thinking about doing stand-up. I first did it when I was 18. I'm now 28. I started pursuing it regularly at 23. So I've been doing it for about 5.5 years, all told. Or 5 years, really. No, about 5.5 years, I said. Or slightly more than that, actually. But, yeah. So, notwithstanding COVID, I reckon I can shave a year off for that reason, which I can. But, yeah. So, but then again, like, why was I attracted to stand-up comedy? Because it's like the party lifestyle, the traveling, yeah, the money. Also, that's an attractive thing about stand-up, frankly. And yeah, it's the partying, hanging out with comedians, like, and traveling. Like, frankly, I've done a lot of traveling now in stand-up, in having done stand-up comedy, and it's not that appealing. I find traveling actually quite stressful, and one of the worst parts about it. I hate waiting around at train stations and all that crap and so on. But through doing stand-up for so long, I've discovered that I also do absolutely love it. I love it when it goes well. When it goes well, it's like there's nothing better. There's no better feeling. But I mean, I have other loves in life, and I love writing as well. I think I actually gained the intimation that I was interested in becoming a writer probably earlier than being a stand-up comic, because I always enjoyed like any writing or creative writing tasks we had at school. You know, anything to flex my imagination a little bit in terms of writerly output. I sort of talked to my grandparents about all this sort of stuff I wanted to write. Like I had the idea of trying to like make a Simpsons for Britain, even though it'd be a British animation, would hence turn out really strange. So yeah, I mean, I keep my iron in the writing fire very much. I kick out poetry all the time. I must have written hundreds of poems at this point. Most of them aren't as refined as they could be, I don't think. But I'll sort that out down the line. Plenty of them are. I reckon I've got at least one collection ready to go of pretty well-honed poems. So, and in terms of books I've written a novel, a sort of 350-page-ish sci-fi thing, a comedy crime novella called Sergeant Arson. I'm working on I've got one book of non-fiction in first draft form. There's sort of 3 books done, mostly. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other books I'm working on. I've got 6 even. And I had this idea of like finishing off 7 books by the time I was 35, which I think is possible, but I just realised now, like, I've done 2 already. So, I've got 5 years. No, I've got 6 years to write 5 books. That's doable. Like, if I really crack on with it, I reckon I can get 2 done at least in a year. So yeah, and there's other things like quantum gravity, which just arose out of personal obsession and general interest in physics. And journalism, I write about all sorts of things online all the time, and writing, yeah. And the breadth of different professions that writer encompasses is pretty big, really. I mean, all academics are writers, or they're writers and lecturers usually. Anyone who writes for a living is a goddamn writer. It's like, writer, what do you mean writer? Writer of what? Like that Hemingway quote from Midnight in Paris. It's like, you know, but when people say, oh, I want to be a writer, like 9 times out of 10 they mean writer of fiction, I think. Yeah, if you're writing history, you say, oh, I want to be a historian. Which is also, I'm also working on a history book. Oh my life. God. So hard. It is. And like, and reflecting on this, and reflecting on some things I want to do, like, if I seriously believe I'm right about quantum gravity, that would be like a Stephen Hawking level of achievement. It would. It would go down in history as being one of the great contributions to science. It would. It would. And there's no point like trying to dance around that fact. And when it comes to what I prioritise in life, like, do I prioritise farming? Like, do I really spend all this time being interested in agriculture and, following in my father's footsteps and all this sort of stuff to some extent, right? But I mean, but also, trying to be innovative, and new and creative with it, and like not really doing at all what he was doing with diversification, but doing something like, yeah, diversification, but I mean, rather different. Is what my ideal farm would end up being. But I mean, yeah. But then again, that's like a deep part of who I am. I can't just like cut that out of myself. I can't. So, like farming, yeah, that stays, unfortunately. And quantum gravity is like, I've also got to do that though. I'm pretty certain that feels very important. And like, if I'm going after money, by the way, like if I'm going after like what, Nobel Prize money, like there are more expedient ways of getting money, frankly, than trying to win Nobel Prizes. If I do win one, I'll likely be in my 70s when it gets awarded to me. The best I could hope for out of the quantum gravity idea is probably a professorship in physics, which is pretty well remunerated. But I mean, it's not $1 million. It's more like 70 grand a year before tax. So, then there's other things like writing, fiction. If it earns money for you at all, it's a long shot. But it'll even get published for one thing. 1 in 100 fiction writers gets published. Roughly. That's actually the statistic. If it does get published, if it reaches the bestseller list, you might make a lot of money. If it doesn't, you probably won't. And that's it. Tough shit. And I think, well, I don't know if like the 1 in 100 statistic takes into account all the writers who are published through sort of niche indie publishing houses. I don't know if that's true. I don't know how that data's been gathered, so I can't really analyse it. Poetry, there is no money in it at all. Philip Larkin, the poet, supported himself throughout his entire career by working as a librarian. James Fenton is a very rich man, but he didn't get rich from his poetry. He got rich from writing Les Miserables, the musical, and he was also a war correspondent for The Guardian, and I think his poetry has made him a little bit of money. But even his best work on YouTube, or a poem, I think Out of These probably is his finest poem, it's only got 4,500 views on YouTube. What a dreadful shame. Like that old bag who clucked her teeth in his poem The Skip. That sucked her teeth. Clucked. Yeah, the only thing, like, now, like, comedy, yeah, that could earn me money, sure, but I mean, like, more realistic estimates, I'm to do everything in-house, like Louis C.K. did, which is probably what I want to do with it. I'll probably end up losing money, if anything, on venues and getting specials filmed and paying for websites, putting it out there, and getting people to have a paywall put up to sell it to people. And then like there's ticket sales, if I can sell out a few venues, and I can make a bit of money doing that. I don't know. But again, like really, I think in comedy also, some of the wealthier comedians or the wealthiest comedians, they're not necessarily stand-up comedians, or they don't just do stand-up. I think I just do stand-up mostly, which I mean is probably like makes me a sort of like Doug Stanhope purist type, or maybe that's a bit of a pretension, because like Stanhope is incredibly well respected in comedy, and he lives in a sort of compound in Bisbee, Arizona, which was probably quite inexpensive to purchase. But like Joe Rogan is, as I understand it, quite a bit wealthier than Stanhope is, and lives in a sort of mansion, or used to live. I think he's moved to Texas now, but lived in a sort of Hollywood type mansion, like sort of an LA mansion thing that we sort of all imagine and associate with LA rich people. And but he didn't really get that money through stand up though. He got that money through doing Fear Factor, was it? Probably quite a bit from the UFC. He's been in a few films, and was it News Radio? Like that sitcom thing I've never watched that had him in it from back in the day. But yeah, Fear Factor ran for a very long time, and he made loads of money doing that. So yeah, like stand up, like that's something I think comedians do just for the love of it, more than anything else. And the sort of the real lucre is to be had in situational comedies. Like, I don't even know how much money Seinfeld makes doing his stand-up. Probably makes it more effective through the show Seinfeld, or has made most of it through Seinfeld, the show. But yeah, I mean, where we don't want to get to in life is to hit this Daniel Plainview point of being 50. Do we? I mean, like, I wasted my life. I've hit 50 and I'm miserable and alone. We don't want that. No one wants that. So, like, what can I endure poverty, or like relative poverty, like, and have happiness? Oh, sure, fine, and have like a lovely wife and girlfriend, wife and girlfriend. No, wife or girlfriend, and enjoy a lovely, happy life with one another, and it's carefree, and like money isn't such an issue, because it might become more of a problem when you actually have lots of money. So, like, to what extent am I going to try and insulate myself, actually, in the future from success? And this brings me up to another point, which is something I'm pretty certain I do. I'm pretty certain I self-sabotage, because and this must be on rather quite a deep unconscious level, I'd suspect it, that we self-sabotage because we're actually afraid of success. We're afraid of making it. Do you know what I mean? Like, or we're sort of we're comfortable in the kind of world we're in at the moment, and we don't want to like make a decisive step into the unknown and enter this new sphere where things are uncertain. It could be that, or it could be that we sense that the glittering great life is not what it's cracked up to be. And then we look at people like Ricky Gervais, and he seems like incredibly happy, but like, is that just shtick? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe he has got it figured out. A lot of them don't, though. I'm sorry to say. Like, and like, even like some of our most beloved people, Robin Williams, when the chips were down, did he have it sorted out? Well, I think that, the story of what happened to him sort of speaks for itself, doesn't it? And he's sort of one person who everyone thought that, had heroin and cocaine problems in his 20s, and was incredibly wild, and but gets it sorted out and spends most of his career on the straight and narrow. Not on the straight and narrow so much, but I mean, well, yeah, I think he was not doing any drugs. He was clean for all this time. Great, amazing, very prolific career in films, brilliant, long-standing career in comedy, stand-up, that is. And then in his, I think, early 60s, dies of a heroin overdose. I was like, what the fuck? And like, what? Well, I mean, something must have been boiling away within the poor man all those years that we weren't party to, that no one knew about, we weren't seeing. Maybe he had a therapist, but maybe he wasn't a good enough therapist as Robin Williams was in that film Good Will Hunting. And couldn't, yeah. get to the bottom of his issues. And, go through, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, similar story. Just terrible. And what is, this is probably the real reason that maybe I don't want success as a comedian, and I've talked about this before, actually getting recognition in the public eye, and having to really live life as a sort of B-lister or an A-lister even, someone who gets recognised everywhere they go. Do I actually want that? I don't know. The money's a very logical thing to want. It buys stuff. Everyone likes stuff. Who doesn't want to buy stuff? It purchases freedom. It purchases a house. A house is a very logical thing to want. Your own place. Of course, of course, everyone wants that amount of money at least. Everyone wants to be able to buy their own house. We all want, I think, a reasonable amount of freedom in being able to choose which house we buy, also. And being able to get into a nice enough area. And what I really want is my Jasper cabin in the woods. So I've got to sequester the funds necessary to support that ambition. And there'll be a bit with sofas outside, and where parties can happen, and or little gatherings, and a barbecue pit or something, and a Jasper cabin from Children of Men, but zhuzhed up a bit, but not zhuzhed up too much. And I do want it to have something of a ramshackle feel, or frankly living at my dad's place. Do I want that really? I mean, I do want to conquer my bit of territory. But then again, I have been born into this privileged situation where it's sort of come with territory. But then again, most situations do, as I understand it also. So it's tricky. And then, who would live at the house? Would my sister live there? I don't think she wants to particularly. We employ a manager to run the whole thing. That might be an option, actually. I get a house, and pop in every now and then, sort of, check in. Planning a life is very hard. So I put a lot of ambition on the table to try and accumulate resources, because who wouldn't if they're sensible? I think I'd put social networking sites, level money, those sorts of ambitions. These multi-billion-dollar prizes. I think I put that behind me, and I think I've been sensible for that reason. And I think on a level, when you get the likes of Daniel Plainview, he really is, or really started out chasing billions. Rockefeller money, and a lot of people do go after that, and that's pretty tricky. But my ambition, I think I just curtail it to something pretty reasonable, more reasonable. And it might fall into, actually millions, probably, a few million, to get the Jasper cabin and to sort of secure a war chest to support my existence as whatever it is that I do. And go on some nice holidays and travel a bit more, really. And I'll probably have to leave that to my 30s now. I mean, also more when I say travelling, I mean more working and travelling, working holidays, and hopefully on farms also, and backpacking, more and not staying in swanky ski resorts or these beautiful island resorts or something that cost thousands and thousands of pounds. Nothing like that. I'll do on a shoestring. But live a sort of engaged, disengaged, engaged and interesting. What was it that James Fenton said in The Skip about this person's life that they threw on the skip. It seemed like, but what he had seemed fine. Like something, an authentic life. Yeah. And yeah, if you throw your life away, a lot of people would sort of turn around and say, like, why the hell did you do that? Like, is that poem, The Skip, about suicide, per se? Or is it? Or is it just about, generally speaking, wasting one's potential? And, like, no one wants to do that as well. No one wants to waste their potential, I don't think. And a real tragedy in life and determining one's life path, I think, can come about when you have all these messages coming at you from the world, from parents, relatives, friends, just random teachers, everyone else. It all kind of coalesces in your mind, and you try to isolate a sense of what your potential is from those people's opinions. And sometimes I think really the only way to come to a true understanding of your potential is through exploring what can be done through your work and through attempting, and for your persistence and tenacity, more so than even things like your intelligence, which is the only thing that education at school places a premium on. That's the only thing that the school places a premium on. Intelligence. That's all that they care about. They don't care about tenacity, discipline. They don't teach organisation. They don't at all. Not really. They do. They pay lip service to this sort of how to learn stuff, but really they're actually quite bad at doing that, in my experience. And I went to very good schools, and they're bad at doing it there. So I hesitate to think, whether or not they're any good at it in the state system. I doubt they are. I doubt they're any better anyway. There's very, very little concern given with anyone's emotional well-being. There's lip service at my schools anyway, paid to pastoral care. My first secondary school I went to, there was no school counselling, none. Second school I went to, what? Yeah, there was like a school counsellor, but no one went to see it. Neither did I. I didn't want getting around. I'd been to see the school counsellor, and like these places are fuckholes for pseudo-intellectual worm people, and and it's all geared towards getting the best grade, getting to the most prestigious universities, and that's all they care about. And no attention paid to what do you really want to do in life? If you're really brutally honest with yourself, what do you want to do with your life? Not what do you want to do at university. Fuck all that. That doesn't matter at all for the time being. You need to think about right now, when you're between this 16 and 18-year-old period, what you want to do for the rest of your life, and write down lists of what that might be, and really think about this carefully. Nothing like that's going on, and you got to figure it out for yourself. It's terrible. I got into farming too late, I think. I shouldn't have done because I wanted to go milk cows when I was 16, but I wasn't encouraged. I was discouraged from doing it by my family because they wanted prestige out of me, or a prestigious career for me or something. Farming isn't prestigious. It's not glamorous, but I think owning your own farm is a pretty cool thing, frankly. So, yeah. Bye-bye, everyone. I love you lots. Sorry this has been a 40-minute ramble, but I felt like I ought to say these things. So thank you for watching. Bye.